Thank you very much. We put something from the macroeconomic in for those who will go away and take that video and talk about it. But quite frankly now, I just want to take 5 to 10 minutes of your time to talk about unashamedly the RDA work at the microeconomics, give you a preview of that which you will see come out in the next week with Minister McBain, which is the comparative economic performance of South Australia, and sorry, Minister Scriven as well, comparative economic performance of South Australia in the last 12 months. So for those of you who have engaged with the RDA network for some time, you know that 4 years ago we commenced a process of bringing to light what the regional investment pipeline looks like. It's very much a joint process, Peter Crew and her team and ourselves. We collate for the state government, for regions, and with hopefully with all of local government partners in the room, all of the what we call contemplated investment over 5 years. And that investment has to be real. So just to give you an example, it cannot be something that is a mining company in the north, in the Braemar province or Mawson province, whatever you might call it, that is talking about a mining lease proposal that's nowhere near being put together. It has to be something within the next 4 to 5 years that has some chance of coming to fruition. And this year that's 1,081 projects, and I really need to say right now that is projects, that work is done by the regional RDA, so I feel a bit fraudulent up here presenting on their behalf, but I did do it for a decade, so, you know, I've done my bit. So I really wanted to also just pause quickly and say that there were 3 questions that we as CEOs and staff get asked. Is it real? Are there jobs? Is this the case? And it's surprising to me how often that comes also from people in regions as well as people outside regions. So there's been really good discussions today about how we talk about ourselves and believe in ourselves and what that is. And I think that's really important to understand that over the last, we've done this seriously for 5 years, and we'll talk about what we're doing right now to take that 1 step or 2 steps further. But over the last 12 years, it is beyond doubt the highest it's ever been. And I think that is a fantastic opportunity, an unfortunate timing for regional South Australia and all of us that it coincides with other places in Australia having the same type of opportunity. So we reach the point where we have growth potential and we are competing with other places. So it is the case that data is king, and so I put some more slides in before, and I should not have because I want to get us out of here as early as possible. But this is the first time on the trajectory that all 5 of the key indicators, and this is our 4th edition, are upwards. You will see, as you would expect, gross regional product, and that of course will be definitely no surprise. We've had a couple of really good farming years, which definitely helps in that space, so we need to acknowledge our traditional agricultural sectors in that area, but it is across all sectors. Regional gross product, regional businesses, number of jobs, importantly population, and I'll just show one quick slide shortly. And our regional investment pipeline, which is $17.92 billion up on where it was last year. And we also retire projects. So you will receive, when you receive the blueprints, an example of the type of projects that we retire. So it's not just that if a project is completed, if it's considered too speculative to be in there, it comes out. And so we've seen quite a few projects, for instance, Port Wakefield Bypass, the Electra network, which was substantial in capital expenditure in Eyre Peninsula, just to give you a flavour of the fact that they come out when they are done as part of that process. So really great opportunity for us to do this. Really great opportunity for us to work out how we can actually facilitate this growth and why population, the ability to do that. For our local government partners and for also our use, RDAs invest very heavily in economic development modelling. I'm going to highlight some of those tools that you can use for those of you, particularly in local government, that we do between regions and also internally to RDAs. I'm going to quickly just show you where each region reports it's up to. And what I think is important is that there is a different strength in each, and I think that's the bit that we can look to each other from. So we've got Adelaide, Hills and Fleurieu and KI, which I think boasts, and I believe boasts the highest percentage growth in jobs, which is for them obviously fantastic, and also a relatively good population growth. However, usurped by the region we are in terms of population growth here in the Barossa, so the Barossa, Gawler, Light and Adelaide Plains. And please, it's the end of the day, we're going to go home, you're going to receive all this data, we're all available as RDAs to talk about it, so don't worry about the slides. And I should mention all of the presentations will be available from today, as well as video from our keynote speakers and otherwise, so we'll send that out to you all on Monday. So our star in terms of the growth of the investment pipeline, unsurprisingly with the mining and other activities that come to the fruition, particularly the discussion around hydrogen. Let me give you suggestions of the things we don't put in, because we're always asked, is this real? There's a $30 billion green hydrogen project that is talked about over in Eyre Peninsula. It needs some enabling legislation, so we didn't include it. We think it's important that we include things that don't have a significant barrier. So again, this 96.9% growth in the investment pipeline is real in that sense. Obviously includes significant government investment around Gawler and hydrogen, which will be transformational for that region in terms of where it is. Far north, GRP went slightly backwards. We know exactly why that is, which is the great thing about that. What's really important here is that what this doesn't include is Oak Dam and BHP. So Claire and I have had many discussions about where that's up to in terms of exploration. If you start to put in what we believe will come to fruition then, some substantial projects that's still in contemplation and started under Hallett, Green Cement and otherwise, I think we will see next year that this balloons significantly. Many people in the room have been at conversations or relatively close around the level of expenditure, both with economic development otherwise. In Limestone Coast, it's the GRP that is a standout here, so that the value-added return on investment from agricultural businesses was the best it's been in some time. If you look back for 5 to 7 years, it's really heartening to see it's not just about renewable energy when we talk about the growth right across regional South Australia. Murraylands and Riverland, pipeline projects, 25%, second only to Eyre Peninsula, and look, hydrogen, it's killing us all, because we are competitive, we are cooperative and we are competitive. But really important that it highlights that in an area in time where there has been a lot of talk about where we go in terms of water and other aspects around Murray River, and Ben and his team, the pipeline of projects has grown quite considerably. York and Mid-North, again, significant in terms of pipeline projects. The most, when you look at the median, the most balanced in its growth. So it has the highest balance on average of every single one of those 5 areas over that period of time. So I think it's just, what it shows to us is while they're nuanced and we are completely and utterly micro in terms of wanting to work with the businesses and the population and otherwise, there is aspects and periods of growth for all of us. This is 12 months year on year. So we've done a couple of things differently when you get that. We've had a look at the investment spread to give some idea, and again, you will get all this data, and we've done it at regional level too. We do this with PIRSA, who take this really seriously with us because it's a really important aspect, and I think it's an exceptionally unique product. It doesn't exist anywhere else to our knowledge in regional Australia. And as we've done this for 5 years now, we're getting to the point where the veracity and the long-term trends are there. So I want to make one particular point in terms of this. So we ran some economic modelling through RemPlan, and I'll get to some ID. We use 2 different providers. Look at me landing on the lectern. If it was that we were to realise even over 10 years a fifth of this investment, it would equate to something like 20,553 jobs. Now that's input-output modelling, that's direct, that's not indirect. And I think all of the things we've talked about today show us that we have some significant challenges, and I think they're challenges we're up for in terms of working out how we would house them. And that relates to exactly how we work with the businesses on the ground. It can be through things like talking about development applications. So I remember in Port Pirie 5 or 6 years ago saying, please don't put a camp there. Please use our accommodation providers who are desperate to survive. Now we're like, right, when you're doing a development application, where's the camp? Where's it going to be? What's modular housing and how fast can it be moved into other developments if required. And I'm just going to share, because we got to the end of the day, and I again tucked this in just before, and just going to share the fact that we actually can demonstrate, and I think it's important that we just pause quickly to say we are on the upward trend, and that is the first time in a very long time. And introduce you to a product that's been recently launched. So as we mentioned before, our work with ID, Population Solutions, they've actually done a specific site for RDSA, been using it now for about 7 or 8 months, which actually compares RDA regions to RDA regions and regional South Australia to metropolitan areas. Makes our job, because evidence-based in definitely dealing with investment both in the private and public sector is really important. My countdown says I've got 4 minutes, but I'm going to try and get out of here earlier for us all. Yep, I'm good. And so as part of that process, I encourage you to use it. We pay for it for all of our benefits, completely publicly available, and evidence is king. I forgot to mention before that the 1,081 projects in number, they're fairly evenly split between public and private projects, but considerably outweighed, I can't quite remember, that the capital investment for private projects was 48.94, for public it's 14.06, so still more weighed towards capital expenditure and quite considerably with private investment. And there are a couple of really important initiatives that I just want to finish off with as we go to hopefully a drink. And again, I can't believe you're all here. I thought I'd have half the room, so I am delighted that you're all here to see this. So number one is one of the things we've committed to is we are mapping all of those projects. So as part of that, we have initial mapping coming through. We'll have the public projects, those 500, available by the end of October. If you are a state, local government agency and they are not on our pipeline, then you will be able to very quickly spatially see where they are, and we'll be able to work that out. And why that is important is that we have hit the 5-year anniversary, I suppose is the best way to put it, Rob, of our RDSA infrastructure prioritisation, yes, and this will be our 3rd reiteration. So we started this as a collective network 2013, and so we're doing things slightly differently this year. So with my board and contributions, so RDA Adelaide board and contributions for all the regional essays, we've commissioned the prioritisation to be done by a company who won the tender, WSP. They also did the Strengths and Gaps analysis for Infrastructure Australia. We have been working with Infrastructure South Australia because, of course, in 2018 they were new, just being established around the prioritisation criteria, which is nearly done. Your RDAs are either in market or about to be in market if you are local government, to make sure that we are not missing projects in state government. And we will be sitting down as a group in 16th of November to finalise that prioritisation with a view to launch that when we're next together. We're together about every 3 months between the chairs and the CEO. This is actually our only time we get our staff together, which is, pretty exciting for us. So it's great to have them in the room. But we will be launching that in December at the same time. I'm just going to quickly talk about the fact that in 5 years, even with COVID, so much has changed in the infrastructure space. So the top 20 projects from last time round are up here on the screen. And we, as part of this again, have done an analysis of where they're up to. And you can see that it is important to understand that feasibilities are critical. This is not a prioritisation about what is investment ready necessarily. It's about where a business case or feasibility might need to prove or disprove how important it is. Deep sea ports. I mean, anyone who's been in regional South Australia, how many times have we talked about that? So many times. It's important to understand the feasibility and what can be done in supply chains. So that's where it's up to. I'd just like to pause and just, with my last 43 seconds, indulge me for a second and say just a big shout out to Britt in front of me here, Peter St. Clair, who's been floating for us today, so they're my RDA team so much. So and also Leonie Boothby, who's the host CEO here in Barossa, because we do rotate this around. Her team, Nathan, who's in the voiceovers, isn't it golden? His voiceovers are beautiful. Anita at the back there, who's our King venue queen, Sue and Caroline, thank you so much for putting on last night and today and substantially doing all the work. It's really, truly appreciated. So on that note, Mike, over to you. And I think we get to go home. Soon.